going to show you how to make this really fun and easy yoga inspired crochet bracelet. Let's take a look at what you'll need. In this project today, as we make this yoga Indian inspired bracelet, crochet bracelet, we're going to be learning three things. We're going to be learning single crochet, you're going to be learning how to make a chain, and you're also going to be learning how to work with beads in crochet. We'll also take a look at sewing in our ends and slip knot. So those are some new things we'll be learning today, and I hope you enjoy it. To make this yoga bracelet, or the larger version, the yoga anklet, you're going to need level 3 or number 3 cotton yarn in either 1 or 2 colors. It's your choice. You're going to need a scissors. You will also need a measuring tape, a 4.0 millimeter crochet hook, a very small yarn needle, and this is Susan Bates. I'll have the link to all of these materials in the pattern, and some Indian style jingle beads. And I will have a link to where I got mine from. I think you can get them at any craft store like Joann's or whatever, but I got mine on Etsy, and I'll leave a link to the person that I ordered these from. You will also need a small little button, and these buttons that I used are about 1/2 inch in diameter, or about 12 or 15 millimeters. Okay, so let's get started. The yarn that I'm using today is called Rainbow Cotton. It's at 8/4 and it's made by Hobby. The colors that I'm using, this is a lavender color, and it's color number 67, and this one is like a lime green, and it's color number 25, and that's available on hobby.com. So the first thing you're going to do is you want to measure around your wrist how long you want your bracelet or your anklet to be. And around your wrist, you want to just leave a little bit of space so that you can you'll be able to button it. And for me, that was about 6.5 inches long. So that's the length of the chain that you're going to start with. And you can see this is about 6.5 inches. For the anklet, you're going to measure around below your ankle, unless you want it to rest above your ankle, and measure it on a little bit on the tighter side, because you don't want it to be hanging down too much on your foot. For me, that was about 9.5 inches long, and of course for you it'll be slightly different. For mine, 6.5 inches, I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 jingle beads, and for the anklet at 9.5 inches, you can see I ran out of beads when I made this one, but I'll be adding those later. You would need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So somewhere between, say, 13 and 16 beads for the anklet, and somewhere between 9 and 11 beads for the bracelet. Okay, so if you are doing one color, one solid color for the entire bracelet, you're going to load your beads on first and then the button. Since I'm going to be doing two colors, I'm going to wait to load those on until I bring in my second color. And so what I'm going to do now, the first step is to load on your button. Now, if you don't want to do it this way, you can sew the button on later, but I like this method because then I don't have to sew it on later. So you're going to go up through the bottom of your button and bring that down a little ways, and then you are going to go down the top of the button and just leave a little bit of a loop at the top there. And then you are going to go back up the same first hole through the bottom, pull that through, leaving a little bit of a loop down at the bottom, and then go back down from the top down and pull that through. And we'll tighten all of this up later. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to chain an amount of chains that it's equal to the length that we measured for our wrist or our ankle. And in my case, I'm going to make another anklet, so that's going to be 9.5 inches. Let me start that over again. And you're going to chain in multiples of 3 plus 2. So in my case, for my anklet, I already know what it's going to be because I made one already. Mine is going to be 9.5 inches long, and for me, that is going to be 42. That's my multiple of 3. 14 times 3 is 42 plus 2. So I'm going to chain 44. For my bracelet, I had 10 times 3, which is 30, plus 2, 32. So to start, you're going to start by making a slip knot. And what you do is you just make a loop and you pull the working end. This is your tail end. You pull the working end up through that loop. And then we just tighten it around the hook. And then to chain, all you do is yarn over and pull it through the loop. Yarn over and pull it through the loop. So just keep counting. Make sure you're in multiples of 3 and check it against the length that you need. And once you get your multiple of 3, then just add 2 more at the end. So I'll meet you back at the end when I have 44 chains. So at some point, like I'm reaching here, I need to move my button down a little bit. So just be patient with it and tug on the different threads until you've given yourself more space for finishing your chain. And again, if you don't like doing it this way, it's very easy to just undo your chain, take the button off, and you can sew it on later. But it's really not that bad. Okay. Okay, so I have my 44 stitches, my 44 chains, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the button so that it's all the way nice and close down here to this end here. And while keeping a loop at the bottom. So you just work with it to get it closer down to where you want it. And then you just pull everything through. And there's the last one. So now I have this little loop here on the bottom. I have the button right next to the loop on my hook, and I'm going to put the loop that's under the button on my hook, and then I'm just going to pull it through that loop there. Okay, and now we're ready to begin the next row. Okay, so we are going to single crochet in the second chain from our hook. So there's one and there's two. And to make this project look real pretty, we are going to be crocheting not into these V's of our chain, but into the back bumps of these chains. That's this little bump on the back of each chain. So we've got 1, 2. There's my little back bump right there. I'm going to go underneath that back bump. It's just the first one that's a little fiddly. And if you can do this, you can do anything. This teaches patience. All right, so once you're under that back bump, we're going to do a single crochet, which is we yarn over and we pull through a loop, and then we yarn over and pull through 2 loops. We're just going to do that in each back bump of each chain all the way to the end. So I'll just show you one more. If you can see, here are the V's on the front, and on the back we have these back bumps. Once we get past the button, it gets a little easier, and also when you're holding this on your lap, it's a little easier. It's a little more awkward when you're holding it up in the air like this. So we went in, we pulled through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. That's another single crochet. We'll do one more. Go through that back bump, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Okay, and once you get going, you'll get a little faster, but this whole project is very fast anyways. It's a short project, so you don't need to go fast. So I will meet you at the end when all of those single crochets are completed. Okay, so we've got to the end, and actually I forgot to tell you that in the second to last stitch we want to skip that stitch and do a chain 1 instead. So what we're going to do is just take out your last 2 stitches. Very easy. And we're going to do a chain 1, and then we're going to skip the second to last stitch, and we're going to do a single crochet into the last stitch. And if you have made it this far, congratulations, you've done the hardest part. That's going to be our buttonhole. So now we are ready to change our color, or if you're staying with one color, you can just continue with that color. So what you're going to do is cut your yarn, leave a nice tail to sew in later. And we're going to take our new color and we're going to pull out some length of it. And we are going to string our little India beads on. And since I'm making the anklet, I'm going to be putting on 14 of them. And I am going to get my needle. Okay, so I found my needle. It fell on the floor. I find it's easier to string the beads if I add the yarn needle. So all you're going to do is just string them on, and you're going to run them down a little ways. And I'll meet you back here when they're all on. Okay, so all these beads have been strung onto our second yarn, and I'm just going to gently pull them down a ways. And as long as you just kind of do it delicately, it's no problem. But if you try to go too fast, they do have a tendency to get stuck. So just kind of wiggle them a little bit and they'll go down. So I'll meet you back here when I have those down. Okay, so now we're going to add in our second yarn. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take this last loop and we're just going to pull that out, put our hook back through these two loops of the last stitch of our last single crochet, and then we're going to take our new yarn and wrap it around the end of the hook. We're going to pull it through those two loops. And then what you can do is just kind of snug down the previous color, and you're going to take the working yarn, that's the thread that's connected to your ball of yarn, and you're going to pull a loop through and you're going to pull that tight. Okay, and we can snug that last stitch well. And now what we're going to do is we're going to chain one, and we're going to turn our work, and we're going to work into each stitch a single crochet. And what we're going to do is I like to work into the first stitch, so you can just keep count. We're going to start in there, go into that first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through two loops. That's a single crochet. And then if you recall, we have our chain stitch here, so we're going to do one inside of the chain, that chain space, and then each single crochet across. And in total you should have, when you're all finished, you should have the same amount of stitches that you had chains, minus one. So in my case, I will end up with, I started with 44 chains, so I'll have 43 single crochets. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and I'll keep counting from here. So and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, I just wanted to add two things. One is, if your beads end up getting in the way, just push them further down. And the second thing I wanted to add is, just for those of you who are new and just learning today, where to put your hook on the return on doing your single crochets. So you can see these V's here at the top from our previous row, and what you're doing is you're basically, there's a little space underneath those V's. That's where you're going in to make your next stitch. Yarn over, pull through a loop, and then yarn over, pull through 2 loops. That's a single crochet. So let me show you that again. Here's our 2 V's, our V, our 2 threads that make the V, and right underneath those is a space. With this kind of yarn, the space is a little bit tighter. That's where you go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So just continue with that all the way to the end. Okay, so if you counted correctly, you should have the number of crochet stitches, single crochet stitches, the same number as chains you made minus 1. So in my case, I did 44 chains, so I have 43 single crochets, and you can double check it. And if for some reason you end up with an extra one, you can either just skip the last one, or you can do one more. It will be fine. If you have one less than what you need, then just do 2 single crochets into the last one to make up for it. Okay, so we're almost done. So the next row is the last row, and what we're going to do is we are going to chain 1, and we're going to turn our work. And just like on the other side, we are going to single crochet into the very first stitch. That's this one right there. So I'm going to go under that first V, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's my single crochet. And now I'm going to chain 2. 1, 2. And now I'm going to pull up one of my beads. So I'm just going to slide it down till it gets right next to my hook, and then I'm going to chain 1 with the bead. And I'm just going to pull it tight so that it's not loose. Then you're going to chain 2 more. 1, 2. And now what we're going to do is we're going to skip 2 stitches. So we're going to skip 1, 2, and we're going to go into the third one, and we're going to do a single crochet. So we're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to repeat that all the way down to the end. So chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to slide one of our beads down. We're going to chain 1, and I like to pull it tight, and then chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and go into the third. We're going to yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, single crochet. And just continue that all the way down to the end, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I just finished my last 2 chains. I'm going to skip 1, 2, and go into this last stitch and do a single crochet. If for some reason you end up with an extra stitch, just do an extra single crochet. If you end up with like just 2 stitches, then instead of skipping 2 stitches, just skip 1 and do a single crochet in the last one. It's not going to be noticeable, so don't worry about it. So single crochet here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to cut the yarn. And then we're going to yarn over and pull that yarn through and tighten that down. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew in our ends, and then we're going to be done. So let me go ahead and show you how to sew in the ends. Okay, so it's not really a big deal, but this is the inside, the wrong side, and this is the right side, and the way that you can tell is the V's are kind of leaning out, but again, it doesn't really matter too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew in the first color ends together, and then I'll sew in the other two color ends together as well. So just thread your needle, and then again this just want to get those nice and tight. This project teaches you a lot of patience, so that's a good thing. So I'm just going to go underneath each of these V's back here with my yarn needle. I'm going to go all the way along here. And it is, as I mentioned, this is a great way to develop patience. So this is a good task for me because I usually like to do things very fast. That's why I don't usually like working with skinny yarn like this. And if you don't like it, you can always make this in worsted weight cotton yarn instead. It'll be, the bracelet will be thicker, but it'll be easier to work with. So once I have that kind of threaded in there, I'm going to pull those guys through nice and gentle. Just going to make sure that both of them are pulled through equally. And I'm going to go do that one more time. One more pass under these V's. Okay, that should be enough. And once I have them in there, I'm just going to kind of pull it this way too, so that stuff doesn't come out. Now I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut it real close, making sure not to cut my work. And now I'll show you how to sew in these two ends. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work this end to the center here. So I'm just going to work my way down here so that I'm at the same level as this thread. Now I'm going to put this thread into the needle, and I definitely recommend these yarn needles because you can see they're so easy. They are so easy to thread compared to other ones. I'm going to cut off some of that. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these guys under those same threads as we did the other ones, so under those V's. And just pull it through nice and gentle. I just like to make sure they get through evenly on the end, not too tight. And there's my dog. All right, so just one more little bit here. And it is a little thick going through there, so there we go. And once you're through there, you're just gonna cut the yarn. And I just like to pull it like this before I cut it, and that keeps it from coming out when it gets stretched. Let me just cut that. And your bracelet or anklet is complete. And then to put it on, you're just going to take your button, and if you're putting it on as a bracelet, what I would recommend doing is just getting the buttonhole stretched out one time before you attempt to put it on, because it does take one time to get the buttonhole stretched out. And then once it's stretched out, you'll be able to put it on easily. So that's that. And again, as I said, if you don't like working with skinny yarn like me, you could use a worsted weight cotton yarn instead. It'll just be a little thicker, and but it will be also beautiful. So I hope that you liked this little project. If you did, please go ahead and like the video. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because this is just the first project of the Magical Mystery Tour, which is 52 weeks of free crochet projects, all of which are going to take you less than a week. And as you can see, this one probably will only take you maybe a half an hour to an hour at the most. Probably it'll take you longer to just assemble all the materials than it does to make it. Also hit the notification bell so that you get alerts. And I would definitely recommend going over to my blog, my website, lightandjoydesigns.com, and going to Magical Mystery Tour and signing up for the email alerts. This way you won't miss any of the projects as they come out. You can also follow me on Instagram. My handle is Agent Sully, and And I do have a Facebook group as well. So all that information will be in the notes below. There is a written pattern that goes along with this that you can pick up over at Ravelry, and it will have a list of all the materials used. So once again, thank you, and we'll see you soon.